I was 16 at the time of this event. My close friend Shala and I were driving back home from visiting my distant family in West Michigan. Back then I resided in Portsmouth, Virginia. It was 11 p.m. out, and we were the only drivers on this road. Mind you, I have never taken this way before, as I wanted to skip the toll roads this time. Shala and I were so busy in conversation that we hadn't noticed coming up on an abandoned town somewhere in Pennsylvania. As we finally caught hold of our surroundings, I had a horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach. My friend caught on as she asked me if I was alright. "Yeah, I'm okay. This town is pretty creepy, though," I replied. I wasn't lying. There was things such as old houses with boarded-up windows and closed-town stores. Even cars and trucks were left abandoned. It honestly looked like a scene off a horror movie. My friend and I stayed silent. You could feel the drastic change in the air. It felt sinister. A couple minutes of silence passed and my car started to shake. I realized that we were running out of gas, and I totally forgot to stop miles back in a different town. "Fuck!" I yelled, pulling over in front of yet another abandoned house. "What a great place to break down at," she laughed nervously. I nodded, agreeing with her sarcastic comment. I took my phone out to call roadside assistance that my parents had programmed into my phone. However, I didn't have cell reception, so I got out of the car and Shala followed. Now this is where things started to get really weird and scary. I was completely focused on getting reception that I didn't realize that Shala was staring completely ahead, looking terrified. She whispered my name before pulling on my shirt. She pointed ahead. There was a man standing about 10 feet from us, she told me. I followed her gaze, and she was right. There was a man standing about 6 feet tall and 2 inches, right there, in front of my car headlights. How could anyone be here? This place was a dead town. I didn't breathe or speak. My heart was in my stomach, but finally Shala spoke up. "Do you need something?" she called out. Right then he tilted his head and smiled widely, scaring us even more. At this point I was so terrified I couldn't even move. He just stared at us, smiling. "My dad's a cop, you freak!" Shala yelled. That was a big mistake on our part. His expression turned to anger and he started to move towards us, very fast. Our adrenaline kicked in and we ran into my car and locked the doors. We looked up and the man was gone. I was breathing so heavily it was distracting me from the sound under the car. He was underneath my car. Shala was screaming, tears flowing down her cheeks, and I was trying to stay calm, praying to God for my phone to get service. Finally, I got 2 bars, and I called the cops and alerted them about what was happening. They responded with the fact that they would be here in 20 minutes. By the time the phone call ended, the sound stopped. I was still on high alert, scared out of my mind. I was hugged up against Shala, us both crying. Her face glowed emotionless as she looked behind me at the back window. My heart told me not to look, but I couldn't help it. I looked, and I wish I hadn't. That man and 4 others, 2 other men and 2 women. My heart dropped yet again. They all smiled. I realized they had bats and something else in their hands, but I started to hear police sirens and a sigh of relief came to me. Shala and I looked to the front and saw the cop car pulling up. I had never been so happy to see a police officer. By the time he walked to my car, the people had disappeared. I was so shaken up I couldn't even explain to the cops what had happened. Shala had done that for me. They offered to get gas, but instead I begged them to bring us to a hotel in a very populated area and call my parents to get us. To this day, the cops never found those people or where they could have possibly came from. My guess was that they reside in one of the abandoned buildings there, and I hope they block this town off someday. I will never, ever take the Backways again.